All right, not an entitlement, not like welfare or Social Security, but the move in one town in California, Stockton, California, to provide universal income, that everyone gets a set paycheck courtesy of the government. Fox News correspondent Clyde Cowan with more on that. What's going on here?
Well, it's not coming from the government, Neil. Let me make that point clear. The plan here is to give some of Stockton's poorest families $500 a month for a year to spend as they please, to see if that can lift their spirits and put them on a path to prosperity.
If you give people a base amount that they're receiving regularly, that can really be a hand up that helps them to really gain their own economic success going forward.
It is a real-world demonstration of universal basic income, paying people just for being alive. It's a popular concept in Silicon Valley amid fears that automation will wipe out jobs, and a tech-based nonprofit is funding Stockton's cash giveaway through a $1 million grant. Even so, critics say pay should be earned and point out that basic income is still a form of welfare. Some economists say giving out free money could be a disincentive to work, but here in Stockton, which had to declare bankruptcy in 2012, and where 1 in 5 residents is statistically poor, many residents we spoke to said an extra $500 a month would be a big help.
I would definitely spend it in my community, just so it goes back towards the community, maybe buying local fruits, vegetables.
Pay off bills.
It will help a lot, especially as a single mother just going through a divorce, raising 4 children. That's a lot of help for me to pay my bills.
I would actually take my children on a trip to Disneyland.
Go to Disneyland. Why not? The recipients will be able to spend this money however they like. Now, many of the details of this program have yet to be released, like who's going to get this money and how their spending habits will be tracked. But at the end of this year-long demonstration, we will get to hear from the lucky recipients firsthand and find out if the cash was enough to boost their self-esteem and combat Stockton's poverty, as these organizers claim. And Neil, this pilot program begins in the fall. Back to you.
Thank you for correcting me, by the way, on the government thing. But would the government take note if it's deemed to be working for whatever reason, or however you measure this? Would then the government be incentivized, or the signal be the government to do this type of thing?
Well, that is certainly the hope by these organizers. Of course, one of the big questions is if this does take off, if this does work, whether government-funded programs like Medicare would then go by the wayside. And there's a lot of concern among progressives and liberal thinkers about that. But they're going to try this program here, see how it goes for a year. Again, several dozen low-income families, $500 a month. It may not sound like a lot, Neil, but again, here in this community, it could be significant.
Yeah, that's a lot of money over the course of a year. Thank you very, very much. All right, let's get to read on all this. This is Madison Gesiotto. We have the host of Making Money on FBN, Charles Payne, and Democratic strategist Christy Sesser. All right, Charles Payne, you've talked a lot about growing up in poverty and Harlem and what have you, and that you know of what you speak. So from your point of view, how would something like this back in your day as a child have changed things?
Yeah, again, paying people not to work or paying people money so they quote unquote feel good about themselves is tough, because what you're really doing is you're keeping them in a position where they don't have to do more. They have to do less to get ahead. And you can get people to a position where they don't have to do anything to get ahead or to survive. And that sort of rut could be a lifetime rut. And I got to tell you, it's very dangerous. I recall FDR had 4 freedoms, and they all made sense except for the freedom of want. And I think the desire, the want for things, what motivates and generates us to do things and go actually unlock skills and gifts that we may have. So yeah, I think, listen, it's been tried in different countries like Finland. It's been a miserable disaster. And anywhere that you have these sort of programs where you tell people don't do anything, we'll do it for you, it always backfires.
All right, now the argument, Madison, against that is they're saying don't do anything. I mean, this isn't sort of a handout as much as it's a hand to help you for a while. You say what?
Well, the reality is, I mean, a lot of people aren't going to do anything if there was universal basic income. And the reason why this is a problem is because, of course, that's unsustainable. On top of that, it discourages excellence, as Charles said. And, it's very difficult to quantify. What would we have as a universal basic income if we were to implement that in this country, which will never happen, of course. But that's what these people behind this initiative, this study, want. They want to see that. They want to see that happen in this country and other countries. It won't happen. It's a ridiculous liberal idea, and it's just it's sad to see that we're wasting money on that.
It's a company picking up the tab for now, Chris. I know the fear seems to be from some conservatives is that this would eventually, and others, is that this would extend to government and embolden or government to do the same. What do you think of this?
I have terrible news for those people, which is that it's already happening in one of the most conservative states in the country, which is Alaska, where every man, woman, and child gets about $2,000 a year from the state government to do with whatever they like. And since they've implemented the program, they have not seen employment rates go down.
That's a bounty from oil companies that do business in the state in the oil industry.
That's fine, but the point is that we're talking about essentially the same thing. Look, for most people, $500 a month.
It's a business that is getting a lot of bang for the buck in that state and having to share the wealth with the residents, right?
But can I finish the point? I mean,
sure.
the point is that $500 a month really isn't that much in terms of you wouldn't be able to stop working if you got $500 a month. However, it could be the difference between being able to pay for that unexpected car repair and not being able to get to work.
It's a substantial amount. Charles, what do you think of that? That it does set in motion expectations?
It does. People come to start to believe that this money is owed to them. And you want to talk about a lack of incentive. It's one thing when you actually expect, hey, the postman's going to show up a couple times a month and bring me, quote unquote, my check. And I will say this, Madison, they have talked about this being a government fund. Bernie Sanders has talked about it. Mark Zuckerberg has talked about it. So we have to be very careful to think that this is some sort of social experiment that can never end up being U.S. policy, because there are a lot of people out there who think it's a fair thing to do. But I'm telling you what, it's unfair. It's unfair to the people that and their children who are born into this sort of system, and they never get a chance to tap into their own God-given potential.
But Madison, to Christie's point, Alaska does have a precedent for this. Now, different case, different reason, but everyone there in Alaska is getting that check.
Well, but I think Christie's completely wrong when she's saying this is the same thing. I don't think this is the same thing at all when we're talking about what Charles and I are talking about, that Bernie Sanders and others are pushing for, universal basic income. That's people getting maybe $12,000, $24,000 in a household a year, possibly more if they have children. That's going to decentivize many from working. That's going to make them born into a... Christy, that's not what I'm talking about. Maybe you're talking about something else, but I'm talking about what a lot of them have pushed for, which is $1,000 a month. Christy, you're talking about the study that we're talking about in California. I'm talking about what they're pushing for, a universal basic income for everybody in this country.
We don't know how this experiment will go. All right, we don't know how the experiment will go in Stockton. We'll keep an eye on it. Guys, I want to thank you all very much, and we saved time talking over one another. Otherwise, this could have been a disaster.